Over 1 year after the launch of Horizon Forbidden West, we finally have gotten the Burning Shores DLC. And honestly, I think it was well worth the wait. But before we get into any of that, I have to address the whole confusion surrounding this expansion. Horizon Forbidden West was launched on both the PS4 and PS5 platforms. However, the Burning Shores is strictly limited to the PS5, no exceptions. There has been a lot of buzz about this on the internet about whether Guerrilla made a scummy move by making it exclusive to the one platform. And I can understand where people are coming from with this, and I think it's definitely a valid criticism because most PlayStation users would probably have expected to be able to play Horizon Forbidden West with what they have it on. But unfortunately, that just isn't the case. People are kind of just going to have to start accepting that games are no longer going to be able to be played on the PS4 because of its decade-old hardware. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the way that things are going to be going. Jedi Survivor, which releases in a week, is also going to be next-gen only, and that's something that people are going to have to deal with. Hopefully, people can start getting their hands on PS5s and other next-gen consoles as soon as possible, so people won't be excluded because of availability. Now, Guerrilla didn't just make this exclusive to PS5 because they could. Their reasoning is that it just can't be played on PS4 because of a certain segment that they wanted to do. And that makes sense. They had a vision and they had to make a decision about whether to compromise on it or to go all in. And they chose to go all in. Without further ado, let's get into the video. I also have to mention that there will be very little story spoilers in the video up until the end, but I will announce that beforehand. So first of all, let's talk about the price. The price for the Burning Shores is $20 US, which in my opinion isn't half bad when we have Dawn of Ragnarok coming out for $40. And for the $20 you pay, I think you get well worth your money. The DLC is pretty sizable. The map's around 1/4 of the base game size, which is actually a lot larger than I was expecting, and the length isn't half bad either. Playing through the main story took me around 6 hours total without doing any of the side content, and currently I'm sitting at around 10 without having completed everything. So for the length and size, I would say it's definitely worth it. But now let's get into the story. The Burning Shores takes place after the Singularity main mission in Forbidden West, which means you will need to have completed the entire game to play the DLC. And honestly, I prefer this. It acts not as a filler segment like the Frozen Wilds DLC from Horizon Zero Dawn, but more of a connection between Forbidden West and the inevitable third game. It allows for much higher stakes than the Frozen Wilds because instead of it taking place chronologically in the middle of the story, it takes place at the very end, which means world-altering things can happen in the DLC because there's no continuity to maintain after it. This allows Guerrilla to go batshit on their story, and they do good on it. The story revolves around Aloy venturing to the Burning Shores at the behest of Sylens. She meets a member of the Quen named Sika who helps her on her journey in the south. The story is pretty rock solid, and it seems like an appropriate place to take Aloy after the ending of Forbidden West. The only complaint I really have is with Sika. The game really wants you to like her so that some of the events at the end of the DLC hit harder, but I wasn't really feeling her as a character. There just isn't enough time to emotionally bond with her throughout the course of the DLC. She's really the only negative thing I can say about the story. It's filled with some truly amazing moments overall, but the DLC's ending is kind of heart-wrenching. And this is because this is most likely going to be the last time we ever see Sylens since Lance Reddick's untimely passing. I don't know if they'll recast him in the third game or if they'll just kill him off, but it would feel off either way with Lance being gone. So not only is the DLC bittersweet because of that, but also because it's the end of Forbidden West. I'm going to assume that Horizon Forbidden West will only be getting a singular expansion just like Zero Dawn. And it's kind of sad to realize that it will probably be another 4 years before we actually see Aloy again. But anyway, back on track with the actual DLC. Now we gotta talk about the actual new stuff. I'm gonna start off with a negative, and that's gonna be the new machines. Well, actually, that should just be a machine, because there's really only one new machine. This is the Bile Gut, which is actually a really disgusting name, to be honest, I hate that. But this is a frog-like machine that spits acid. It's actually really cool, but it just doesn't really get anywhere near as cool as the Frostclaw or Fireclaw from the first game. And now, there is another machine that does go with the Bile Gut, and these are the Sting Spawns. These are small little buggers that can be taken down with just one arrow and basically just serve to annoy you in a larger fight. They do have a separate log entry into the notebook, but since they only spawn in Bile Gut sites and don't actually drop any loot, I'm just gonna count them as a singular entity. And then there's also the Water Wing, which in essence is just kind of a reskinned Sunwing. The only difference is that Aloy can use the Water Wing to, well, dive underwater. You unlock this midway through the DLC and can even bring it back to the main map, which is really nice. It's good to have a break from using a Sunwing for, well, over a year. But now there is one other important enemy, and this is going to be the final boss. I'm not going to spoil what it is, but if you watch the trailer, you know exactly what Aloy is going to be fighting against. And I have a feeling that this exact fight was the reason for the DLC being locked behind a PS5. Because if I fought this thing on my PS4, I can guarantee you it would have done more damage to my home than the Pharaoh Plague would have. And in terms of gameplay, there is actually quite a bit of new stuff here. One of the things Guerrilla advertised on were the explorable clouds, and well, they certainly are something. The clouds are actually able to be interacted with, and these are a part of a group of side missions that require Aloy to kill Stormbirds and discover why they create a bunch of clouds around them. It's actually super creepy to go into the clouds with all the lighting and a glimpse of the Stormbird every now and again. It's really cool, but unfortunately there's only 6 of them. But honestly, that isn't too bad, I like these. Now in terms of side missions, there aren't a lot, I believe there's only 3. But their quality is a lot better than the base game. I actually became invested in the characters, which is something I failed to do in most of the base game side quests. My favorite of all of these centers around a returning character from Zero Dawn, and it's quite the emotional event. And also, there is a lot more armor and weapons to play with. All of the armor are Quen themed and look really good, but the only real problem is that most people won't really find a niche for them. Forbidden West already has a legendary outfit created for a certain playstyle, which makes all of these Quen armors seem really niche and specialized in comparison, which is why I don't see many people really wearing them. But on the bright side, I do think the transmog system is going to come in handy, because I do like the way a lot of these look. But in terms of weapons, we have a few new ones. They aren't too crazy from the ones we see in the base game. I mean, they're kind of just new weapons. They aren't designed to be crazy overpowered like the Banuk weapons from the Frozen Wilds. They're supposed to be a way to tinker with your playstyle in interesting ways. Now, there's one new weapon for each weapon type. A new sharp shot bow, new blast sling, stuff like that. But there is one new weapon that plays fundamentally different from anything else, and you can't buy it in the store. As a part of the main story, Aloy will get a brand new weapon type that I'm not going to spoil. It definitely feels like it's going to have a steep learning curve, similar to the Shredder Gauntlets from the base game. It really shakes up the way you can play the game, and I love it. From the small amount of time I've had to play with it, I can say that people are going to have some fun with this. You'll definitely know what I'm talking about if you've seen the launch trailer, but I'm keeping it under wraps just in case someone wants a surprise. And there's also a lot of returning things from both the base game and the Frozen Wilds. The animal collectibles are back in full force from Zero Dawn, which is another nice touch. There's also a lot of side content that was also present in the base game. Rebel Camp's return, albeit rebranded, and a brand new Relic Ruin is in the game. And one of the coolest things about the Burning Shores is that since it takes place after the main story when Aloy gets her Sunwing, it caters to the player being in the sky. In the Relic Ruin I spoke about, it actually has you use your Water Wing as a way to solve the puzzle, which I think is really cool. And that essentially wraps up the non-spoiler section of the video. Now I will begin talking about my thoughts on the actual story in full detail. So, first off, I mentioned Sika and how Guerrilla expects you to like her by the end of the DLC. And that's because Sika is the first person Aloy can enter into a relationship with. During the final moments of the DLC, Sika says she wants to spend her life with Aloy, and it gives the player the option of what to do. There are two options in which Aloy doesn't deny having feelings for Sika, but still rejects her because of Aloy's already busy life, and there's one option where they full on start kissing. And I'm personally not a fan of this. I just don't like Sika enough to see Aloy with her, and the DLC just doesn't use its 6 hours well enough for me to truly actually start to care about her. I would have preferred it if Aloy got into a relationship with one of the other main cast of characters from the base game that we've already spent hours upon hours with, such as Alva, Varl, or Talana. But obviously Alva's already in a relationship, Talana just got broken up with, and Varl, yeah, we already know what happens about Varl. I actually would have preferred if Aloy didn't get in a relationship with anyone. One, because I don't think getting a relationship is really needed in any of the games because of just how Aloy acts. Like, I just don't think she needs anyone. And two is because I still like to imagine I have a chance with her. That's a joke, by the way. But now I need to talk about what I enjoyed the most in the DLC. And this is the final boss battle, the Horus. And honestly, it's insane. This fight was so worth it. Just the thought of taking down an entire Horus seems insane to me. Now, the fight itself in the beginning is a bit lackluster. The legs of the Horus kind of stomp uncontrollably, and it's kind of awkward to be fighting something that's so much larger than Aloy is. But once you get past the clunky first part, the middle is so damn good. The Horus traps Aloy in an arena of sorts, and she has to attempt to overheat the arms by destroying their heat sinks. And this is actually really cool because of the fact that you can see the full Horus the entire time, and it truly lets you fight the Metal Devil face to face. The only thing I would say that could make this better is the addition of Corruptors. I feel like a few of these would have been thrown in to make it a bit harder, because at the end of the day, what made the Horus so devastating to humanity wasn't its size and power, it was its fabrication ability. I feel like we should have seen a bit more of that. It uses its fabricator while it's charging up, so we know that this particular Horus can do it. I also really wish that this boss fight wasn't spoiled in the trailer, but the fact that the Horus fight was put in the DLC and not a standard entry into the Horizon franchise is really interesting. Because I mean, if this was only put in a DLC and not in a mainline entry, I can't imagine how batshit the third Horizon game is going to be. I am so excited for it, but unfortunately we still got a long wait. And if you can't tell, I'm an Aloy super fan, so this next 4 years is going to be rough. And with that, that's all I gotta say. Next video is going to be on Black Flag, which I'm in the middle of writing at the moment. So to everyone who made it this far, have a nice day.